Peace be with you. I'm Pastor Stephen Gjerde at Zion Lutheran Church, and this is Picture Time, a time during the week where we pause and look back at the Sunday school lesson from the prior Sunday and picture it for ourselves using beautiful works of art. This past Sunday, the Sunday school children at Zion studied David and Goliath and learned about how small David brought down great Goliath because he trusted in the Lord. People might say, well, David brought down great Goliath because he just used a slingshot and got Goliath right between the eyeballs. But that only worked because David trusted in the Lord. David was the youngest son of all his brothers. He was small, so small that when he tried to put on the armor of his brothers, the clothing made to protect him in warfare, it didn't fit, and he wobbled around and walked around and kept falling over. And so he said, I can't wear this. His only armor was trust in God, our Father. So I have a picture of David right after he's killed Goliath. One thing people don't often remember is that David not only used little pebbles in a slingshot to kill Goliath, but then after Goliath died, David also cut off his head. That's what the Bible says. And so the picture that I'm about to show you shows that. And if there are parents or others who really don't want to take a look at that, now would be a time to at least cover some kids' eyes to see if you think it's okay. It's not that gory, it's not that horrific, but it is a picture of David holding Goliath's head after he's cut it off. And I want to show it to you for a couple of reasons. So here it is. It was painted by a man named Carravaggio, who lived from 1571 until sometime in the early 1600s. And here we have David looking very youthful. Look how young he looks there, right? Looks like a boy. And then there's Goliath, whose head he has just taken off because he has killed him. And he's making sure that Goliath won't ever rise up to hurt anybody ever again. Goliath was an enemy of God's people, and so by defeating Goliath, David was protecting his people, and we give thanks that God worked through David to do that. That's the kind of God we have. God protects his people. Now there's a couple things to notice. Notice what's around the back here of David. That's probably where he kept his slingshot and his stones, a little backpack. Here over his shoulders is the sword that he used to take off Goliath's head. And just notice the look. What really struck me was the look on David's face. David isn't proud, but he's certain. His eyes aren't looking haughty. That is, they're not looking like he's saying, look at me everyone, I'm number one. And he's not holding his nose up in the air. David looks humble, but he also looks certain. He is certain that he's done the right thing. He is certain that God has worked through him to protect and save his people. And so David simply did what David was called to do. He did it in confidence, in the confidence of faith in his God. And that, to me, is a really important thing to see, because David is just a boy. He's not wearing armor. Carravaggio here made sure that we saw how loose his clothing is, how soft his clothing is. He made sure that we saw that, David has no hair on his chest, right? I mean, he's not a man yet. He's still a boy. And yet, for all of that, he defeated mighty Goliath. And he did it with this confidence that we see in his face. So this is the faith of God to which God calls us, and that God works in us through Jesus Christ. He calls us to trust him in a similar way, that is, with a similar confidence. We're not called to kill giants the way David did, not with slingshots and swords. But we are called to conquer, to fight the good fight of faith. That is, we are called to fight our own temptations against sin. We are called to fight our own doubts and to trust in God. We are called to the struggle to be faithful. And that's what we see portrayed here in David and his victory over Goliath by Carravaggio. So I hope you enjoyed that. And that's picture time for this week. God's peace be with you.